Hello and a very warm welcome, viewers. My name is Arun, and you have started watching the AI with Arun show. In today's episode, I'm very excited to introduce you to Sudarshan Ravi Jha, who is a remarkable entrepreneur and a venture capitalist who's making waves in the Indian tech ecosystem. Sudarshan is not just another investor. He is a multifaceted professional with an impressive background. He is an alumni of IIT Kharagpur. He is the co-founder of LetsTransport, which is a groundbreaking logistics startup that has scaled to serve over 250 enterprises and built a trucking network of over 200,000 plus trucks in 20 cities. What's even more impressive is that Sudarshan achievements has been widely recognized. He was listed as one of the top 30 under 30 entrepreneurs in the supply chain category across Asia by Forbes, and also recognized as 30 under 30 by Forbes India. Currently, he is a partner at Z21 Ventures, which is a cutting-edge VC firm that he co-founded. And before his entrepreneurial journey started, Sudarshan has worked at very prestigious organizations like JP Morgan and Accenture. So Sudarshan, a very warm welcome to our show.
Thank you for your kind words, Arun, and glad to be here.
Awesome. Sudarshan, so let's jump right into the show. So you founded Let's Transport, and now it's Z21. So what inspired you to lead these two organizations and found these two organizations?
Um, I think the right way of saying is I had a bit of a hustle, I feel. So going back when I started Let's Transport, I was still working in JP Morgan when we came up with the idea as I was 23 years old. Uh, and while my goal in college was always to sort of land on Wall Street, but a few quarters into JP Morgan made me realize that I will never change the trajectory of JP Morgan. Probably JP Morgan is going to shape me, right? And I felt I can do a bit more, probably have a bit more hustle in myself to start something of my own and grow it at the pace that I can, right? Not be dictated by a pace which a corporate has set for everyone, for example. Maybe I was a bit of a sort of rookie back then, you can call it, or probably someone who was naive enough to think that he can move mountains. Just thought we can build something, came up with a few ideas, uh, find it the right team, and said, want to do something. So let's start. Truck aggregation was one of the ideas that we landed on. Um, and we thought we'll build an application and everything we'll be able to solve trucking challenges across India without even realizing that probably building the application is the last 10% of the hassle. Um, but anyways, so that is where I started back in 23 with just a bit of probably a bit of hunger, you can say it, a desire to do more than what the corporate was offering me to do.
Great. So dig down a little bit deeper on Let's Transport, because that truly transformed the trucking business in India. So I know you alluded to that. You guys build the applications, but like you said, the real challenge was on the ground, right? Getting onto the axles with the truckers, getting onto enterprises. How did that work out?
So how it happened. So all of this is, there's a lot of coincidences over here. And so let me actually give you the long story. So when I was at JP Morgan, one of my first ideas was to build something like a passwordless sort of system, an identity and access management system, which is way more convenient than the systems back then. If you remember, I'm talking about the time when there were used to be RSA tokens, and we as as employees at JP Morgan used to log into this Bloomberg and MSCI data terminals continuously. And the interesting thing was, if you're away from your desk for even 30 seconds to get a printout or just talking to someone, you will get logged out. And then you have to log back in. So one of my first ideas was to actually build something like a passwordless. But what happened is, in discussing these ideas with my friends and smart folks from college days, I was talking to a dear friend of mine, Pushkar Singh, who also was a co-founder with me in Let's Transport. And he used to be very busy, right? And we used to keep discussing that, why are you so busy? And um, he used to manage supply chain for one of the factories at ITC. Um, And that is where we came to realize that trucking can be such a nightmare. Trucking is very broken in India. And from my point of view, um, I was still at JP Morgan. I was logging into MSCI data terminals and I was consuming Bloomberg. And I'm talking to a friend of mine who's one of the top rankers from college. And he's saying that at ITC, trucking happens in a certain way where you're way more reactive than preemptive, and that made it was very difficult for me to understand. One of the bad habits that I had back then was just pick up a call and talk to a few people. So I just picked up a call, called my seniors who were working in Flipkarts, Mintras back then, and tried to understand. They were kind enough to connect me to their trucking teams, and that is how I sort of understood that enterprises have a problem. And again, when before you come to know of trucks, you never actually really notice them on the roads. But once you start thinking about them, you start seeing that every second vehicle is a truck on the road, right? So I was walking from my office to home in Bombay, and there was a truck stand, and I just noticed it, took a turn, went and spoke to some of these truckers, and realized that the problem is real, because once they opened up, they were all ranting about enterprises, how business happens, how their payments are deducted and paid so much, like so late than they're promised, and things like that. So I didn't know much, but what I knew was there's a large gap in the conversations that I had with enterprises and the conversation I had with truckers. And with a bit of zeal back then that we can do something, seemed like a good problem to jump on. So that is where we started. And again, one of the reasons probably we were able to be successful compared to a lot of other startups who were building in trucking back then. We counted actually one day, one of our investors asked us to map out the market, and we counted there were 106 startups in trucking, to our surprise. And in hindsight, I think three or four of us have done fine. Um, and everyone else either shut or pivoted. And one of the reasons why I think we were able to sustain was because I did not come from trucking as a background, right? So my way of learning about trucking was to get business and to go to all these client warehouses to understand how trucking happens and what are the pain points, right? So while a lot of our competitors were just focused on building the application, I was actually spending time in Flipkart, Myntra, Bisleri, Asian Paints, Big Basket warehouses, for example, back then, just to understand trucking. That how does it happen? And fortunately, because of that, the depth at which I could understand trucking, that it is not just a truck which is supposed to reach the warehouse. There's a bunch of things which happen. There's a whole workflow which happens after that, and that workflow can be different for different sort of sectors at times, because there was no standardization in trucking, right? So all corporates had built their own sort of playbooks of how to do trucking. Um, so a good understanding of that probably helped us, or probably at least helped me build the right sort of product which can serve this industry. So I think, yeah, long story, that is how we started understanding enterprises and trucks better. And we were eventually able to build an application and sort of an ERP which can serve both the side of the marketplace decent enough.
Yeah, so that's a great way of going about the business, Sudarshan. You were an outsider and you came and disrupted the business. But I think the key message I took away from what you just said was that while you were an outsider, but what you did was you took the additional effort to learn from the people who are actually running the show, on the enterprise side, on the people who are actually driving the trucks, the truck owners, and then you learned a lot, and then you're able to synchronize everything and then build the platform. So it was a very outside-in perspective of building a platform, and truly because you were indeed an outsider in that world. Right. So Sudarshan, so you founded a company, right? And now where you are at Z21 Ventures, right? So you have experienced both sides as a founder and now on the venture side. How does that experience feel? And what experiences from your founder hat do you bring in as a venture capital?
Very interesting. So um, I think a bunch of things, to be honest. As an investor, so I started investing way back in startups way back in 2018-19. There are only a few asset classes that I started investing in. One was, of course, the index funds and the ETFs once we had some money, and the other was startups, right? Because how it also started happening was there was a lot of juniors who used to reach out. Let's Transport was home to a lot of IIT Bombay, Delhi, Kanpur, Madras, and Kharagpur, of course, grads. And a lot of people via them used to reach out to us to help get connected to the right VCs, to take feedback on deck, to just brainstorm sometimes. And then fortunately, some of them were kind enough to offer us uh, or asking me to if I would like to invest. And that is where my investing journey started in 2018-19. Um, Over the years, once I, now playing the role of a full-time VC, there are few things that I can easily see compared to a lot of other pure financial VCs, for example, who come from non-operating backgrounds, is I think the empathy towards a founder is much deeper if you have been a founder, right? You sort of understand the challenges that a founder faces. You sort of understand that that will never be a linear growth curve, right? And interestingly, I've seen a lot of investors sort of study J curve, but never actually, bet on J curves. They will never bet on a business which is looking like a J curve, especially in the initial phase, right? So I think once you have built a business, you understand the leading indicators of success, both on the hard side of business and on the soft side of the founder. You sort of are cognizant of the softer skills, the personality, reading between the lines sometimes. Um and hopefully, at least for me, I feel that has helped me become a better investor over time. Of course, all of us make mistakes. Early stage VC investing is about home runs. You can't have all the right calls. Hopefully, even if 20-30% of your calls are like home runs, that is like one of the best results that you can expect. uh, but whenever I take a decision, I take it with the intent that this is the home run, and is it better investment than all the previous ones? What have I learned from the previous mistakes, and how have I improved my checklist? Um, have I used it adequately enough? Uh, and Arun, to be honest, I think it, a lot of once you have been a founder, you know that everything will not go your way, and you can, as an investor, you can only do uh, you can only do like not everything to get everything right. But what you can do is be intellectually, like, be super honest to yourself and be self-aware. Realize that things that you don't know, you need to ask for help, and things that have you really gone deep enough? And eventually it is like you write down all the things, you have to take a decision, and once you know that there's nothing else to be explored, no other questions to be answered, no one else to talk to, you just truly say that, is this something that I would bet on myself? And if the answer is yes, you take that decision and you move forward. So I think being a founder has, long answer again, but I think being a founder has given me the courage to bet with all honesty, to play, to take decision making with all honesty, and after that, whatever happens, you can't do much, but you think honestly, and you play with courage.
Yeah. So honesty and courage. Yeah, those are two great takeaways. So Sudarshan, taking a step back. So while we're doing a research, we found that you talk a lot about systems of action, right? So explain to our viewers what does systems of action mean and why is that important?
Oh, so if you sort of in very layman terms, if you think of what when things started getting digital, in the web, let's say in the web 1, web 2 era, right, what you started seeing is a lot of record keeping started happening online, right? For example, you would see offline directories moving to online, search becoming more and more accessible on such places where you can search through a lot of records, right? So probably system of records is how you would think about it. When you move forward, you started seeing that, hey, there were people who started thinking that, okay, there's a lot of online records, there's a lot of data. What is the insights that we can derive from them to improve businesses, for example, right? Or maybe mine sales better, or to probably decrease costs better, and things like that. The system of analytics, system of insights started coming up, which was built on sort of on top of system of records, right? If, for example, if there are no records, probably there are no insights, right? With the advent of AI, what we are seeing is there are system of actions now. The work that people used to do, for example, let's say paralegals who used to do back office job to help out lawyers create demand packets to be presented in court, for example. um, Analysis of lot of video data to sort of find evidences, for example, which can be used again in court, let's say. Number crunching, massive number crunching exercises, making sure that when, automations which are not just robotic process automations, but are way more versatile. So as we see more AI come in the two-dimensional world right now, we can see a lot of actions which people used to take earlier, paralegals, auditors, compliance managers, insurance underwriters, and things like that. Uh, that getting displaced by AI, which is a system of action. So action that people used to take is now a system is capable of taking that. So in short, that is what I mean by system of action.
No, that's
But great
wonderful.
to know
So
that you
yeah,
you looked it up and you found it when you were trying to probably dig a bit about this
yeah.
before this call. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful insight. So from systems of record to systems of insight to systems of action, and I think that's where we are going. Especially now we're talking about agentic AI, AI agents, multi agents. That's where we are headed. All right, so we're already talking about all of these AI frameworks. So talk to our viewers about Sudarshan, about the state of AI adoption, in particular that you see in the Indian startup ecosystem. One, and in particular the supply chain space, because you have spent a lot of time in the supply chain space. So talk to our viewers about both the startups as well as the supply chain.
So I'll probably broaden the question a bit around by not just talking about India, because we specifically invest a lot in the US-India corridor, right? So I'll probably speak globally when I'm
Yeah,
answering.
absolutely, Sudarshan. Yes,
Um,
please.
so if you talk to, and we probably invest in a lot of enterprise AI powered services as a software solutions right today. So what we have started seeing is when we have talked to a lot of execs in some of the larger corporates in the US or India, especially in US, we are starting to see a lot more budgets being carved out for AI powered solutions, specifically to displace white collar jobs, right? So I would say white collar skill deficit jobs are something where managements are, like, compared to 6 9 months back now, they are way more bullish on leveraging AI solutions in order to displace. For example, you can talk about sales engineers, site reliability engineers, technical underwriters, for example. So these are like probably intensive jobs, which were probably where there's a lot of uh, demand for such people over time, but not enough skilled folks who have been available. I think these are the industries where we are seeing a lot of management being very bullish, and specifically carving out aggressive budgets, ambitious budgets to adopt solutions. which are AI in nature. When you talk about supply chain is very interesting, right? So not just trucking, but overall, if you look at shipping, also, if you look at the new age uh, parcel deliveries, which are booming with e-commerce in India, for example, and things like that. Uh, the thing is, a lot of times, what has happened in supply chain is that data has been there's a lot of unstructured data because supply chain at times in an amalgamation of digitized data and then offline data because you're working with service folks, blue collar workforce who are on the field at times. um, so it sort of becomes a sweet ground where you can say there's a lot of unstructured data, voluminous data, which continuously is being updated by people who are not just who are not sitting in offices but are sort of blue collared, and because of that, auditing of this data becomes very, very important. A continuous check, making sure that all this data flows through a checklist becomes very important. So in supply chain, you find unstructured data is high. You also find siloed data is very high. So there are probably corporates and vendors who are not sharing data actively. The data is sitting in their own systems. So with more and more AI coming in, you can start seeing some of these silos go away and some of the unstructured data becoming like the ability of machines to make meaning out of unstructured data going high, right? The supply chain is very interesting, and I think, to be honest, I've spoken to enough people in US India corridor within supply chain. I think there's a lot more to be done where people can leverage AI to solve for smaller workflows. But the key is that if you solve for hundreds of small workflows leveraging AI, you might be sitting at a incredibly high operating leverage, which people don't realize today. To be honest, I would just, if I were a founder or if I were an operator, I would probably go in and not just take reporting of my L1, L2 teams today. I would encourage people to go in and look at the workflows and how people are running it, because I don't think enough brains are looking at that problem today. Enough brains are just sitting comfortably reviewing people rather looking at how work is being done.
Like to say, the devil is always in the details.
Always.
Yeah. All right. Out of curiosity, Sudarshan, so you said you invest a lot in enterprise software business, right, and SaaS business, and we have been hearing about SaaS is a dying business, right? Is that true in your opinion? Are we going to see more agents as a service and the death of SaaS companies, or how is that?
I think there's a lot of innovation dilemma that is happening in this, right? And there's a lot of cannibalization, which a large enterprises, and because of which a lot of large enterprises are not innovating as fast as they should. So typically, I think the same 33% of the market will sort of get disrupted for sure, and others will sort of improvise or die. I think conventional SaaS is going to go thin. And when I talk about SaaS or the SaaS that we invest in, it's all AI powered SaaS. We don't invest today in conventional SaaS because the ability of normal SaaS and the sort of market opportunity which is open with AI powered SaaS is very different. Example, when you talk about the US labor market, it's 10 point odd trillion dollars, which is ripe for disruption because of AI system of actions coming in. But when you look at conventional SaaS, it's probably a few percentage points of that $10 trillion market. So when you have such a large opportunity that you can go after, why would you go after simple system of records or system of intelligence? And anyways, most of the system of records and intelligence which used to exist or where there was a need is mostly already there, right? Uh, so even system of records powered by AI, which are coming in, are way better compared to the conventional SaaS which existed in healthcare, in automobile, in several places. And that is why I firmly believe that AI powered service as a software is the way to go. In the next 3 to 5 years, we'll see a lot more SaaS companies either innovating to that, moving from a per seat option to an outcome based pricing options. Um, Maybe a very few will survive in a conventional SaaS way of things.
Yeah, but that's an interesting insight because a lot of people who are coming on our show, it should give them a different perspective of how they should be thinking about their own product and go-to-market strategies. All right, so Sudarshan, let's talk a little bit about the future now. So you have seen the world evolve, right? And what are the trends that you see in AI and in the other technology, including let's say quantum computing and others, crypto and others that you are most excited about, and you're willing to bet your money on them?
So we invest a lot in AI application layer. So we try to be as close to the problem statement within industries. So for example, healthcare, legal services, insurance, real estate, supply chain, commercial, for example, right? Um, and our thought process is this: there are problems which could not be solved earlier because there was very limited ability to find meaning out of unstructured data. With more and more AI, LLMs, and several other technologies coming in, newer workflows, newer system of actions which can solve for people deficit, skill deficit, or work that used to take a lot of time and cost can be brought down. So when we think about investing, we try to be as close to the problem statement as possible. Try to think, why was this not possible earlier, and why is it possible now? Are LLMs really playing a role? Is AI really playing a role? It's not just AI, even ML at sometimes. Is it playing a role in solving this problem, or is it something which could have been solved earlier also? It's just AI as noise, which has been introduced in the pitch deck, for example, right? Um, so we try to be very cognizant of the problem statement in short, and then think, how is any new technology playing a role in solving for this, which was not possible earlier? So that is how we think about it. Um, Apart from this, the technology that I'm very bullish on is, and this just makes common sense to me, that when we think about AI today, we are mostly thinking about AI in 2D. We are thinking about note takers and sales, probably an AI sales bot, AI marketing bot, and things like that, right? Even when the examples that I gave are AI insurance underwriting agents, for example, right? Or AI compliance auditors, compliance or AI auditors, for example. But if you think about it, the next evolution is an amalgamation of computer vision, AI, robotics. And how does that come in to start seeing AI in 3D? And you will probably start seeing bits and pieces of this in controlled settings, such as on automobile, on assembly lines, for example. Um, in trucking, for example, when you look at very a site which is enclosed, how can you move to completely robotic AI plus robotic solutions in order to run the site, or large pieces of the site, trucking within these, for example. Machine making machines, for example, general purpose machines making specific machines for work to be done. So a piece which I'm actively trying to track is, how does AI start coming to real world, coming from 2Ds, but also to 3Ds now, right? And I'm already starting seeing some people, for example, work on AI powered robots, which are, painting wall painting robots, for example, and things like that. I'm seeing automobile inspection, uh, you know, uh, general purpose robotics, which is happening, which was earlier very rule based, but now more and more learning based algorithms going into making sure how these robots operate, for example. So I think Those are pieces which I'm very, very bullish on. If you ask me, I am yet to deep dive a lot on the quantum side of things. Not gotten too deep into that, but yeah, these are the dimensions which I'm very bullish.
No, that sounds very exciting, and that's probably the world that we live in or are going to live in, where there is a huge amount of interaction between humans and agents, or some kind of an agent, be it in the form of robotics, whatever the form factor might be. But you are spot on. That's the word. Sudarshan, as an investor, I have another question for you, and I've seen a lot of startups in this space. So look, in the enterprise software space, there are very large established companies, right? That let's say the SAPs, Oracle, Workday, Salesforce, all of those are very well established in that space. They may have started as a SaaS, they may have started as on-prem, doesn't really matter. But in the AI agent space, there are a lot of white spaces that exist, which these companies are sort of not fulfilling, and hopefully they'll fulfill in a future roadmap. So if I'm an investor, would you advise me to work in those white spaces, or would you rather not?
If you're a founder,
I'm a founder, yes. And I'll
see,
give you an example. I'll give you an example. Let's take hiring, which is across every industry needs hiring, right? And Workday is a great example. SaaS-based company, they're already doing stuff. And let's say I want to create a hiring agent, an AI agent that's focused on hiring, and I know that Workday either already has a solution or probably will get there. So as an investor, would you put money in my small startup of, let's say, two, three, four people who want to invest in that kind of an AI agent? Or would you say that, look, Workday is already going to build it, there's no point for you to invest or build a product?
if I'm going to pass on that opportunity, for example, it's not just going to be because of Workday. It may be because of the size of the business that can be built, the market itself, for example, and the moat that a founder will probably build over time in leveraging AI, right? So I'm generally a fan of complex workflows which can be understood if you are entrenched in the domain long enough. And as you rightly said, devil is in the details, right? So people who have the ability to sort of abstract out these details, have a 30,000-foot view, but then work at a 1,000-foot view also to build workflows which can um solve the need of the customer. So if I were to think about it, my reason is not just going to be Workday. Workday is going to be one key aspect, for example, or the incumbents in the industry, how they're thinking, how they are innovating, what are the budgets that they're carving out, what is their focus, what does their management think about going deeper, and my bet on whether they'll be able to innovate uh, or whether they will be going after the same market, that you will probably is going to be one aspect of things that I'm going to think about definitely, but it is not the only aspect, right? So I recently heard an investor give an analogy. For example, it's a very good analogy. It was like, big enterprises are like these trucks which are running on highways, and the startups are like these motorbikes, right? uh, so the interesting thing is, um, you have to think about what is the advantage that a motorbike is going to have compared to an enterprise. So probably an advantage is going to be that the motorbike can navigate through a lot of unknowns very fast, small spaces very fast. They can enter into a lot of small markets which an enterprise will not think about, because from their point of view, probably it is not meaningful enough yet. But a motorbike, it just makes sense, right? So how do you eat into these small spaces which the enterprise is not thinking about? So hiring, but within hiring there are several segments, right? So how do you break it down into smaller segments, geography wise, function wise, so on, and how do you say that, hey, this is my right to win, and whether this small market, and what are the few markets which already make my investment safe, for example. So I'll probably start thinking like that, and then if there are complex workflows involved, I can be a little more comfortable that it's not going to become a red ocean immediately if you start hitting success. So typically that is the way how I would like to think about it at times, versus just thinking that if Workday is going to go after this, right? So there's a market outside of Workday today also, for example.
Yeah, no, that's a great insight. That's a great insight. And that actually feeds into the next question that I was thinking is, what would your advice be to aspiring founders or people who already have some kind of solution? What would your advice be to them? How should they pitch to you? What should their pitch deck look like to you?
So the same advice I would probably give myself when I was 23. Um I think people underestimate the value of domain understanding. Unless you're building a consumer business where you have been a consumer, you have faced a problem for long enough time. Uh, when it comes to building anything for enterprises or even for the relevant audience, your domain understanding really helps a lot, right? So if I were to build something in supply chain, I would probably give myself 1.5 years within supply chain. And that experience, probably not from a point of, going deeper into supply chain or building a career in supply chain, I would still know at heart that I want to start up. But if I'm going to start something, and if I see supply chain at a high level that there's a problem, I'll probably deep dive into it, spend some time in a circle which is SOTA at that time to understand how things happen, build enough connects, and understand the details, and then say, okay, 2 years later, I'm going to start. And I'll give you an example. There's a junior of mine. He built Gamesbury Labs. And I was talking to him recently. And long story short, he wanted to build something in gaming. But before he could even build something, he said, I'm going to spend a couple of years in Moonfrog. So he was clear that he wants to start up. But, it's not like I want to start up, but I want to start up today only. He was practical enough to say, okay, the best way of understanding how do you build a gaming company is to understand the mechanics of things in and out by being inside one of them. So he went in for 2 years. He worked, but he also was understanding the details of how things happen. And then he said, okay, now I'm ready. I know enough to start something of my own. And he started his own business, doing phenomenally well today. He is probably making tons of money already, right? And my thought process today is that if he had not understood the domain, he would take a much longer time thinking that he has become a founder, but probably spending a lot more time to understand the details, the same way I did, for example, before understanding what you're supposed to build or what your consumers really want.
No, that's wonderful advice. So any founders who are listening in, you want to do what Sudarshan did. He picked up the phone, he spoke to a number of people uh, about understanding the trucking business, both from the enterprise side as well as the trucking side. So that is something that what you want to do, irrespective of whatever domain you want to start your business in. Wonderful advice. Sudarshan, let's talk about the VC industry where you are in today. How do you see this space evolve, in particular in the India and in the US? I mean, the US is very mature, right, especially in certain pockets of the US. Whereas in India, it's still evolving. There are challenges, right? How do you see the VC world evolve, in particular in India, in the next, let's say, 10 years?
Oh, I think it's gonna explode, to be honest. I think the understanding that students today or the broader uh, ecosystem demographics today has about startups is way better. Back even when I was starting or when I was graduating, um, startups were sort of perceived with much higher risk. Today, I think when I go to my campus, I recently had the privilege of visiting IIT Kharagpur again. I could see that a lot more people are, way more excited about doing more and more projects towards startups. They are thinking actively around what can be built. A lot of them are already building for campus, right? So they are building delivery applications within campus. They are building, applications where you can reserve your food. You can request for an infrastructure upgrade or things like that already in campus, right? So I think because of the whole digital, because we are in a super, at the probably the epitome of digital era. Um, I see a lot more people gravitating towards starting up very early. I also see people who are working in startup not being seen as someone as people who are probably primitive or did not land day one jobs, for example. So I'm seeing a lot more grads coming on this side. Um, I'm also seeing on the venture side of things, I'm also seeing people mature, because probably people who started investing in 2009, 2010 as VCs, a few of them have built right snowball effect in them, have built right reputation. A lot of them who are very transactional in nature are feeling the pain also. You keep hearing things about the VCs who you don't want to raise money from. People are actively sharing. Um, so I see a lot of cleansing happening on the VC side of things. You will see a lot more, people uh, who are thoughtful and who are helpful, sustaining on the VC side. You will also see a lot more operators because probably in 2007-10 there were not a lot of operators who were becoming VCs. But now you'll see a lot more operators probably who are going to become VCs. And Yeah, I think that is how I see the ecosystem unbundling. I also see a lot of the amount of capital that is available for India to deploy in startups in India increasing. I keep speaking to top like VCs that I respect, and back in 2010, when they used to go to all these overseas funds to garner funds for India, they had to explain what is India, what is the India story. Today, fortunately, because of the macro playing in, because of the way India is positioned, I think the India story does not need to be explained that much. So the larger pools of capital for unlocking or for backing innovation in India is also opening up. So I think right people on both side and right capital pool available, I think we are in to see a lot more innovation happening in India. Probably in 2034, out of the top, if you just think about NSE comprises of 50 companies, for example, when Nifty, sorry. Um, the right way of thinking this is how many Nifty 50 or Nifty 500s would be technology companies 10 years from today. Uh, I'm a firm believer that number is going to shoot up beyond our expectations.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, every company is becoming a tech company, right? Be it retail, they are tech companies with retail flavors. Automobiles, I mean, Tesla, classic example, right? It's a car, but basically an AI robot that's running on the road. So yeah, that's the way it should be. All right. So Sudarshan, that brings us to the last segment of our show, the rapid fire round.
Mhm.
Okay. So here's my first question to you. Your go-to book for entrepreneurial inspiration.
The Almanac by Naval Ravikant.
Okay. Okay. All right. What is the one technology that you think that every startup should be leveraging?
OpenAI.
Okay. Or OpenAI equivalent, or are you a big fan of OpenAI?
OpenAI equivalent. Right.
Okay.
If you're not consuming LLMs today, uh, you're probably not witnessed technology at its full power.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. All right. The third one. What is the biggest challenge facing Indian startups today?
Bad weeds on the founder side as well as on the investor side. On the founder side, people who work with low integrity, people, you keep hearing stories and a few rotten apples sort of. mm, They give a very bad taste to other founders or the whole ecosystem as such. Uh, and investors who are, um, again, push founders in the wrong direction. Again, people who work with low integrity. I think low integrity on the founder or investor side at any point in time is probably the worst thing that Indian startup is facing today.
Yeah, yeah. And low integrity eventually, it pushes you the wrong way. I mean, be it in any business, founder or no
True.
founder, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The fourth one, what is your favorite productivity hack?
Say yes to less. So say no a lot. It Keeping yourself busy does not mean that you are super productive. Um, Plan and focus on the right thing. Take time to think, to say no a lot, and with enough no's and the right focus, you can move mountains. With doing, if you're doing everything and you don't have focus, you don't know what is the key, where to place all your energies, you'll probably not be able to achieve anything. So yeah.
Awesome. And then the last one, what's the one piece of advice you would give to your younger self? Not saying that you're not young anymore.
If you are convinced about something, don't just give your opinion and let someone else take the action um, or decision. If you are convinced about something, put your foot down, right? Let it be starting up, let it be if you have to make a decision on something. Don't let someone else take a decision when you know it is wrong and you're like, okay, fine, according to me, this should happen, but fine. You know, that but fine hurts a lot. And this may be something which I've encountered so close to me. But I think if you very strongly and clearly, with all intellectual honesty, feel that you are going in the wrong direction, um, put your foot down and get things done the right way. I think that is super, super critical.
Yeah, that's very wonderfully said, Sudarshan. One of the things that my wife tells my two daughters is that if you make your own decision, other people will take it for you. And then you may or may not
Mm,
like it.
true. That's true. Yeah. So same thing, probably articulated in a different way, but yes,
Yeah, yeah,
she
yeah,
articulated it beautifully.
yeah. All right. So that brings us to the end of the show. One last closing thought from you about the enterprise software world in general, because you are in the business, you created some stuff in that world. One last word from you for the enterprise software space in general before we close. Any closing remarks from you?
Yeah, I think especially this may be useful for a lot of first-time founders. When we think about us as consumers, we start seeing the decision making very simple, right? There's a need and there's a decision to be taken. Uh, so whenever I have to probably think about, let's say, boat as a business, and I have to think someone needs headphones. How do I position it so that someone who needs a headphone should buy boat, right? So pretty simple, because the person that you're interacting with is one. But when you're thinking about enterprises, um, the decision making and the so the person who is gonna be the user, the person who is gonna be the decision maker on the financials, the person who is gonna be an influencer at times will be different people. So an enterprise is one word, but the key to solving any enterprise business, or to key to unlock need, the way you sell to an enterprise, is always going to be, how do you break that enterprise down into several functions? How do you understand what are the KPIs of different people? What are they gunning for? What are their objectives? And once you start understanding their objectives, can you see the what you are trying to sell as one of their objectives? Who's that person going to be? So once you understand that matrix, you can start seeing who's going to be the user of your product, who's going to be the influencer, so who's going to be the champion, who's going to be the financial decision maker on your product, right? So where's, for example, where's a very simple question is, where the budget for this going to come from? And so start breaking it down. You start demystifying how an enterprise thinks or works, and your work on understanding the need, user, the budget, everything becomes way better than just thinking at a high level that every enterprise probably, for example, would need an auditing tool. Don't just think like at a very high level. Break it down into subsequent elements.
Yeah. No, so clearly, Sudarshan, you are a man of details. And this is a key learning that every founder who wants to pitch into you should be prepared with before they approach you.
Thank you, Arun.
All right. So, Sudarshan, thank you. This was a very insightful session. So, deeply appreciate the time you've taken for our viewers.
Thank you so much, Arun, and gladly, at least a few people will, start innovating more after seeing this. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Yeah, thank you.